Well, good afternoon, everybody, and it's lovely to be here with you this afternoon, and thanks for the very kind introductions. It's always nice hearing nice things said about you, because often you get so much rubbish thrown at you. I think we all experience that, and I think that probably one of the things throughout the pandemic is it brought out the very best in people, but in some cases it brought out the worst of people as well. And it's important this afternoon that we reflect on how COVID impacted women in particular, but ethnic minority women specifically. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Shulamite for her introduction as well. I met Shulamite back probably 2015 actually, when ANYiSO was in the very sort of early stages. And to see the organisation bloom and grow to what it is now is just it's a real tribute to you and to your dedication over the last 6 years. So congratulations, and I look forward to seeing its success over the next 6, 10, 20 years. So, I mean, our topic today is how women have been affected by COVID and what Scotland's doing to support them. And I want to kind of set the scene a little bit first of all. Many people have been impacted, some positively, but most people have felt some negative impacts of COVID. And it's changed how we live our lives. But I want to quote from a United Nations report that says, across every sphere, from health to the economy, security to social protection, the impacts of COVID-19 are exacerbated for women and girls by virtue of their sex. And there's many reasons for that. Firstly, women generally earn less money than men, so generally have less savings to call upon whenever things go wrong. When there were challenges to employment, this was felt more keenly by women, and some people were able to draw upon the furlough scheme, but not everybody. And what we saw during COVID was that women, and particularly women from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, had to continue working. They were in lower paid occupations. They were in occupations where they were coming into contact with members of the public more regularly, and they were more likely to use public transport than other parts of society. And that's really important, because we know all of those are risk factors when we're considering the impact of COVID. When we start looking at this, we have to ask the question, why? And it forces us as policymakers to shine a light on ourselves. Because if women, and particularly women from a minority ethnic background, are finding themselves in lower paid occupations, are less able to make savings, we have to ask why. Because that's not the society that any of us want to see. The opportunities for young people, and particularly young girls, from ethnic minorities, must be exactly the same as the opportunities for other young people. Now, it's been mentioned that I was a teacher for 20 years, and I loved teaching. One of the best things about teaching was working with young people. I didn't so much like working with the adults, I've got to say, but the children themselves were great, and children really bring out the very best in all of us. And to see young people with all those ambitions, all those hopes and dreams for the future, and then to say to them, actually, because you come from this type of background, these professions are not available to you. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a teacher saying that? Of course it wouldn't happen. But if we look at historically what is happening, that is the case. and it's not good enough. One of the positives from COVID was that the UK government looked at the level of support given to families. And they looked at universal credit in particular. And families were given an uplift. People on universal credit were given an extra £20 a week during the pandemic. Now, £20 a week didn't make a massive difference. £20 a week didn't suddenly make all worries about money disappear, but it just made things slightly easier. And we've seen recently that the government, the UK government, has taken that £20 a week away. And we will definitely see families falling into poverty and hardship. We will definitely see people have been driven to use food banks as a result of this. It is not good enough, and it's not good enough that we are seeing this in 2021 here in what is supposed to be a developed country. Now, I've asked the Chancellor repeatedly to get that £20 a week, to retain it and put it back in. They didn't. I've written to the Prime Minister about it. I've raised this in the chamber in the House of Commons. I've stood up and I've talked about the impact of that £20 a week. But they took it away anyway. And this is something I think you, and maybe this is maybe a challenge to ANYiSO. How are you going to campaign locally? How can you campaign? How can you ensure that your voices are heard over this £20 a week? Maybe you were somebody that was in receipt of it. Maybe you know families that got this help. How are you making sure that your voice is heard over this? Now, Scotland has a different approach, and the Scottish Government has said for every family with a child aged 6 and under, they will be eligible for £10 a week. For every child that is 6 and under, they'll be eligible for £6 a week from the £10 a week from the Scottish Government. So if you've got 3 children under the age of 6, that's £30 extra a week that the Scottish Government's giving you. And that's for children that are living in poverty. Now, up to the age of 6 is not good enough. So the Scottish Government have actually committed to, by next year, increasing that to up to the age of 16. Now, that's good. That's a step forward. But it's not good enough if the Scottish Government is given with one hand and the UK Government's taken it away with the other. And it's not good enough that the Scottish Government has to step in to fill the gaps that the UK Government are leaving. And it's not good enough as well, actually, that youngsters in England are not able to get that support because they don't live in Scotland. And the government in Westminster is not listening to that. Unfortunately, the impacts of COVID are going to continue. One of the things I haven't spoken about, and I'm sure some others will speak about it, is the increase in domestic violence during the pandemic. And this becomes even more acute whenever women are more reliant, or have lost the financial freedom that they were able to get through working. So it's important that we are not only aware that we are taking action, that we are putting in place support mechanisms for women in this situation. And frankly, we're not doing enough at this point in time. So again, that's something. Make sure you're raising it. Make sure you're raising it with myself. Make sure you're raising it with your councillors, with your MSP. Tell them what you want to happen. Because parliamentarians and elected people who are elected do listen. They want to help you. They want to see what's important to you. I'll finish by saying a couple of things. First of all, I have to apologise, and I've already told Shulamite. Unfortunately, I need to pick my own children up, so I need to leave here at 3:30, and I've probably talked to almost that time. I had hoped I'd be able to stay and have a chat, but I unfortunately have domestic responsibilities as well, and I'm sure all the working women here will understand that, so I need to pick them up. from their gymnastics class. So I need to leave here at 3:30 or they'll be abandoned there. And I see Police Scotland are sitting there, and I don't want, I don't want to be accused of abandoning my children, so apologies for that. So what do we need? Well, I've talked a little bit about what the Scottish Government and the ambitions of the Scottish Government. We need the UK Government to match those ambitions. We've just had the budget and there wasn't much ambition in that. It's fine. If you're a champagne drinker, you're going to find the cost of your champagne is a little bit cheaper. That's fine. Occasionally, I'm given a glass of champagne somewhere. I don't know the last time I went out and bought a bottle of champagne, quite frankly. It's not going to help me. It's certainly not going to help most of the people here in this room. And you've got to wonder about a government that's more interested in making champagne cheaper than actually feeding children. So I'll finish by saying the UK government must acknowledge that poverty exists. It must acknowledge that there are inequalities. And there are inequalities not just because of poverty, but also because of ethnicity. And we need to make sure that the opportunities for the youngsters here, and I love the piano playing. I wish I could get my children to play piano as well as that, but they won't practice, so well done. I see two of the piano players there. I don't know where the third one is. But, oh, you've put a jumper on, so well done to all the piano players. Absolutely fantastic today. I really wish mine would practice as much as that. But we need to make sure for all the youngsters here in the room that they have the same opportunities that every other child across the UK has. So I'll certainly be working towards that, but there are jobs that you need to do as well. So think about how you feed into policymakers like myself, like Elspeth, like Malcolm, like Bill Kidd, your MSP, who's not here today, and like other councillors. So just think about how you feed into them. Think about how you have dialogue with them. And please, keep campaigning. Thank you again, Shulamite, for the opportunity to speak here today, and I hope the rest of the day goes very well for you.